Boom! Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you may be at this time. My name is Samuel Davis III, and I am the host of Uplift Our Community podcast, powered by Bridge Visions. Today, we're going to have a conversation about healing. What and how do you know you're healed? I'm going to read a little something I wrote down here. What does the word healed actually mean when we're talking about emotional wounds? How do you know when you're healed? How do you actually know when you're healed? Is healing when the pain disappears? Is it when you forgive someone? Or is it something more subtle, like realizing that something that once controlled your emotions doesn't control them anymore? Here's something interesting to think about. Sometimes the sign that you're healed isn't that you stopped remembering what happened, it's that remembering it no longer changes your peace. The event didn't disappear, the memory doesn't disappear, but the power it had over you did. So, with that being said, I'm going to open up healing, and I want to open up to the to my guys here for our conversation. Let me bring them in. We got Mr. Gordon Chavez and Jay Harris, the inventor. Um, with me just opening up that statement right there, I know it can bring a lot of different thoughts to each and every one of you right here and those in our live audience. If your conversation hits you a certain way and you feel compelled to make a comment or remark, I'm going to put up a link here where you can actually join our studio and you can join in and join the conversation live or make comments. We are on Facebook and we are on YouTube. I will be converting this account over to the Bridge Visions Facebook page as soon as we straighten up some other things as well. So, again, welcome to the Uplift Our Community podcast. And again, with that being said, and speaking on healing, I'm going to start with you, Brother Gordon Chavez. What do you think, and how do you feel about that opening statement right there?
I think that's a great topic. I think that many times we think about, and at least for healing, we think about it's going to be done at some point, right? And the idea is that there's, so to speak, a destination, right? Something happens, there's a little bit of trauma, maybe a little whatever, emotional stuff going on, and so we start to try to get better. Hopefully, we start to try to. Sometimes we, maybe we don't actively work on it. Sometimes it kills the motivation to take the steps to get better, or whatever the case. And sometimes there just needs to be grief for a period of time before the healing starts. Maybe, I don't know, right? Every situation is different, every person's different. But when I first saw the title of this topic, I thought about this idea of wanting to reach the end, and so in this case, wanting to maybe complete the healing process. And I started thinking about some of the things that I've gone through, some of the things that I'm constantly working on. And I started to think that maybe there isn't a completion, maybe there isn't a destination, maybe you don't actually get there and say, okay, I am completely healed about this or that challenge or that trauma or whatever. And maybe it's all, you know, um, something that you just constantly get better at. Maybe the healing is just consistent. Maybe, because, I've talked to people and I've had situations for myself where there's things that I feel like I'm over them. And for the most part, I can even have an open conversation about it and it doesn't bother me. But then I'll reach a certain experience that reminds me of that in a different way, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't completely heal from it, or maybe I'm still, maybe, because it's okay that some things still bother us, right? It's healing, I guess, doesn't necessarily mean that something doesn't bother you. But I guess it's like a type of coming to terms maybe with that trauma or that experience maybe. So I thought about the idea that maybe we don't fully ever heal, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Hmm. Oh, I hear that. Jay, what do you have to say?
I am all for the Cardinals. Tomorrow's 314 day. There it goes, representing,
St. Louis, I like that.
so, but I've had experiences for his life, like we all do, the ups and downs. Uh, I believe first and foremost, one has to know that they're hurt. One has to know that they've been traumatized. One has to acknowledge where they are in that dark space. All right, you got to have a starting point. There are guys I know that have, they're punishing women in their life who, because of some girl that turned them down for a date in the 5th grade. Just like, I never trusted another woman since the 5th grade, bro. Like, you might want to work on that, but it's very not every mind really looks at that, and I find that's more in the minority, where people actually look at themselves and say, where am I on this, as far as this scale of being an evolved person or being really in touch with myself. So that's very telling to just have that question first and foremost. But I think as the human experience demands, in my humble opinion, that we are here to grow. We are here to be more for not just the human collective, but for as the earthly collective in our experiences. Um, I know my ADD kicking in, but I was dealing with like relationship stuff. I was dealing with business stuff. I have to do a lot of travel, so sometimes that catches up with you. For some of my work, and you trying to get a good night's sleep. It gets a struggle because you're always planning for not just the next day, but for a week in advance. So, but when I lost one of my childhood best friends and growing up, and like the anchor, that pain put a lot of the other things that I was dealing with in perspective. Okay. So sometimes it takes a trauma to fix a lot of other traumas, in that context. I'm like, who cares about this? Who cares about maybe having to ride, catch the later flight and then throwing off your, reservations on it? Who cares about, maybe, especially sometimes when you work, you might be one volunteer down, but okay, that person had to do things and we made it work. It's just the little things, but it forces me to look at the grand scheme of things, or what it means to not only connect with my emotions, but make sure that I don't let the everyday or the petty interactions of life pull me down from a greater goal.
Yeah, that's a real big one, and something that you mentioned that I had to take note of right off the bat. You mentioned about how you carry that emotion with you. Some people carry that emotional baggage. Some people carry physical baggage. They physically. And I will just kind of give you a small story with myself. Being that I was a former in law enforcement, downtown San Diego is where I worked at, downtown San Diego, and I'm taking my wife down. I had been retired, and I'm catching a train down to San Diego. And as we get off the Santa Fe station, and I walk and I pointed over at the building and say, "Hey, that's where I work at." And I hadn't even seen it, but I knew where it was. And I pointed, "Hey, that's where I worked at." And right when I looked over at the building, this pain that I had jumped right on my neck, right here, and it just was like it was so sharp, but it was an old familiar pain. And I had been carrying that, and it took me seeing the location to ignite that thing again. Since that time, I have used laser therapy and cupping techniques to get rid of the pain, but I carried it. And it was really, really something, really something. So just adding on to that, again, I want to ask with you, Gordon, one of the questions I had, this is just, we're talking about understanding and understanding healing. Can someone believe they're healed while the pain is still influencing their behavior?
Wow.
Can someone believe they're healed while the pain is still influencing their behavior?
So just as a quick answer, I believe yes. But it's one of those things that I want to answer, but I can't necessarily back my answer, right? So I mean, to kind of gather my thoughts, I would say that people might feel that they're past something, they might feel that they've overcome something, but maybe not realize some of the subtleties of how that trauma manifests itself. Like you just mentioned the pain in your neck, and it took you actually having to physically be there, in front of that building or whatever, to realize that this is not just neck pain. This is not just me that I slept wrong. There's a connection right here, and there's something familiar. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it took you back a little bit. Possibly, I don't know. To realize that was how it was manifesting itself, and maybe emotionally you might be a little farther along in the process of healing. Maybe mentally you're a little farther along in the process of healing, but I believe, and I can't explain it, but I believe there's a connection between mental, emotional, and physical um, pain, if you want to call it that, right? Physical conditions, maybe even, and so how they manifest themselves, we might not realize the connection. And Jay, if I heard you right, you said, maybe, do we even recognize the trauma, right? Do we know that something we experienced caused trauma? And sometimes we might not know. Sometimes maybe we're so busy with life that we haven't had a moment to really sit down and think and process some information, or I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that say they can't sit at home in the quiet because these things start coming up, right? And so there's multiple things happening there, like I said, the physical triggers or the physical causes and how they manifest. Did we recognize the trauma? Is there a connection with the physical and the mental and the emotional? And recognizing all those connections and those dynamics, we might say, I'm past it, but we're still doing things maybe that we didn't realize were a cause of that, maybe, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And before you answer, Jay, I just want to bring up, there are still people right now still just getting over the pandemic. You remember just getting over, I mean, sure, getting rid of that mask was one of the first things. That was easy. But the cleanliness and the fact that sharing germs and understanding germs and how they spread, there are still people that, that were living in their homes that were never used to just being in one area like that for a period of time. So there is that's real, and it's still fresh for a lot of people. Some people that are introverts, they loved it. I'm kind of both here and there. I can go both both sides, but there are plenty of friends that I know that really have went through some things. And just to add on as well with that situation with my pain in my neck, yeah, there was some therapy that I went through that was involved with what I did. That was that took a lot of work, and even now it's one of those things to talk about openly, to sit back and just discuss it. That's a part of the healing process. It's within itself. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you, Jerome.
I didn't get a chance to answer the question, man.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to read it back to you.
No, that's cool, man. I know you. I'm you. I'm sorry. That's my trauma.
It's manifesting itself right now. He just got triggered.
But on your brilliant point, Samuel, it's like you said, there are some people that just now are getting over the pandemic. There are some people that will never get over it. Okay, people died. Okay, you don't get over necessarily. You don't get over the death of a loved one. You just learn to live without them. Okay,
Mm.
so that's what. So that's it for a lot of people. That's pretty much permanent survival mode. All right, because it's like, like, oh, I know people, they lost, mother, father, cousins, what have you. So and in their mind, like, I see them from time to time, and they're, actually a couple cases coming to mind, and I can see their behavior changes, but they think everything is okay. I think they get stuck in survival mode, but to proceed on, for as your point is concerned, there are a lot of people that believe that they, quote unquote, got it together. Okay. And just think they're just fine. And I'm like, no, buddy. Like, no. I've seen people, even on my volunteer work, my community work, sometimes the seniors, what have you, they're grabbing 2 big bags of food, and I'm like, you were just here Monday, now you're doing this Wednesday, what's going on? And they're so food insecure. They're new to how we do things, but they figure, hey, you might cut off the lights, you might have some challenges in that way, but at least if I have food, I know that I'm going to be able to eat. That's a fear taken away from them. Okay. So, but that's also a trauma response. You've been made so insecure, wondering what maybe the next source or the next sacrifice will come from in order to have some type of healthy food in your home. So they will go above and beyond. And often, even when I talk to, I have some amazing volunteers, some great people, they'll say, oh, that person's being greedy. They'll be new. And I'll just say, hey, you don't know where they came from. You don't know what they dealt with. Okay. Give them a couple visits. Okay. And then when you watch it, you see them kind of ease up a little bit, get some laughter out of them. The food is one thing. The community is everything. Okay. The food is one thing. The community is everything. They find people that they can connect with for their hobbies, people that can connect with on how to make the wonderful jellies and jams, all that good stuff. But I think that it's so important. And of course, the scene has to be right and what have you, for the most part. If you see somebody that doing something that's pretty traumatic, or you notice a change in them, not for the better, it is your responsibility to bring that to light or talk to them, let them know, because in their mind, they don't even see it anymore. They don't even see it. It doesn't register. They're stuck in that survival mode. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, the heck I am. Okay. Yes.
let me jump in on that, because I will say this. There was a certain point in time, and I'm just going to use my law enforcement aspect to it, where you want to come in, you want to help people, you want to jump in, I want to help everybody. But there's a certain point in time I realized I can't help everybody. I can't. I need to rest. I need to sleep. I need to take care of me too. And that has changed a lot for me in that aspect, in particular since my retirement, running into those individuals, because it was easy for me to sit back and say, oh, you want me to change the modem on your computer? Yeah, I'll drive on down. I'll come on through and add that in. And it was easy for me. But it's after a while. I'm sorry, we got bringing in Benji in here. What's going on, Benji?
Benji.
G, are you in there, man? Can we? Might be working on the sound.
I think he's trying to get ESPN.
Hey, Benji, we're having a conversation today about healing and how do you know you're healed, and that was what the conversation started. I didn't know we didn't hear any audio cues that you were actually here. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. There we go.
I can hear you.
Jerome, you want to go ahead and jump in and ask him the question to get him up to speed with us?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I have my nice little list here, so I'm looking here and there. All right. So all right, Benji, can someone think that they're healed but actually still be carrying the pain?
We all do. I sure do.
Ooh, God, go please elaborate, sir.
Right.
Elaborate.
So when you react to anything, you're not healed. If
Mm,
somebody says
There
something
you
to
go.
me and hit the trigger, and this is what I will tell you, my trigger is very simple. You don't mean that. Okay. I wrote that for my mother to say to me. Because when I say I'm hurting and she said, "Oh, you don't mean that." Well, I do. But that's a trigger point for me. Now, I've learned not to get angry about it. It means that I need to look at it, something is not right. Right. So when I express something to anybody, and you say, like when I said to I don't like you. Oh, you don't mean that. Oh, I do. Instead of being angry about it, it's kind of like, no, I mean it sincerely. You
Mhm.
suck. Yeah, but it's not like that, But that was a lesson. This is back to the landmark. It made me realize, oh my gosh, that's what happened when I get triggered like that.
Mhm. Literally, as he speaks and talks about triggers, I was speaking to, as you know, or some of you may or not know, I started a gun club, and literally speaking with someone about that. One of my friends talking about guns, and they recognized it. They said, I want to support you. I just can't hold a gun. I just can't, because I know I am. And you remember that in 2019 when you called and I got that call about, they start talking about this. And I said, oh yeah, I remember that. Some people recognize there are literal triggers around guns and around certain incidents. And that takes like Benji said, he recognized it right away. My friend, the same thing. I just thought that was a little strange, but it's also a smart thing. Person knows themselves very well, that I don't need a gun around me and I don't want one around me, and I know what happens when one is around me, because I have a tendency to let loose sometimes. So yeah, that's excuse me, Gordon, you want to say anything more with that?
No, I think that's really good information.
All
I
right,
really
thank you,
like the
Gordon. I'm
word.
glad you asked. Okay, here I go. Now, now I want to ask all these wonderful guys here, because Benji said something that is pissing me. I mean, sorry.
Whoa,
That
there's a
I
Same,
find
trigger.
you're the same.
intriguing.
You're
Let's
the
go
same
with that.
space.
Intriguing.
Yeah, it's same
Where
space.
do triggers work in when it comes to knowing if you're healed? I
You're not.
mean, go
That means like you're not finished your assignment, right? When you heal, you don't react as emotional. You're like, oh, that's a pointer to me, right? Oh, I'm
on.
I'm in the wrong direction. Whereas before, when I'm in the wrong direction, I get frustrated, I get angry, I get really annoyed, and like I took it personally. Now it's like, wait a minute, I made a wrong turn. Let me just turn back. That's what it comes down to.
Oh, okay. So it's okay to have a trigger, but knowing to not let it go so far. Is that a sign of healing, or am I
It's
missing it? Help me out.
no. It's not so much that trigger was actually was was initiated by me to my mother to
Hmm.
tell me, because I'm one of those people that require anger to do things. You piss me the f, I will bury you, right? So that was initiated for her to teach me when I was younger. As I got older, when other people say that to me, like my exes and things like that, I realized I'm in the wrong relationship. I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong house. I'm in the wrong job. I'm in the wrong community.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with them. It's not my lane. I need to go back to my lane, my classroom, right?
Mhm.
So don't be angry about them. You in the wrong place, right? So if that's if I recognize quickly and don't make an emotion, then I can turn around faster. But if I'm not, like hang on to it, I'll stay in that room for a very long time and be miserable, right? But that's the healing part of things. You never completely heal. The wound and the scar is there for a reason. It's to reminder of where you came from.
Mhm.
Mr. Chavez, what do you feel for as the triggers and the process of getting better, or what have you? Does a healed man have triggers, or healed person?
So specifically on that, I'm kind of back to, I don't know if we ever completely heal, right? And so if we never completely heal, then if there were ever triggers that caused us to react in some way, because I don't think that all trauma has triggers necessarily, but obviously a lot does. And maybe some triggers are not visible to others. Maybe, people are really good at just keeping it inside and, maybe biting their tongue or whatever. Or, one of the things that I do when I'm not up for whatever, I isolate myself. I stay home. Until I can get to a place where I can deal with the situation and be, say, respectful to everybody. And not that I'm ever disrespectful, but I want to be present. And if I'm dealing with some stuff, it's hard to be present for others that might be around me. And so I think that's at least the way that I do that. Now, as far as the ever healing and the triggers, part of me is thinking like, I'm wondering if triggers are always like, it just seems like we talk about triggers as being something bad, a negative reaction. And I'm wondering if triggers can be a positive thing. If triggers, like I get triggered like at malls and stuff. Like I feel like I'm being targeted as a consumer to buy and get into the mainstream. And everybody had like those I forget what they're called, but those coffee, or not coffee cups, those thermal cups that were really popular for a while. Any kind of trend like that, where everybody, that whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses, I get triggered like that. And not so much that it's like where I want to do something hurtful to anybody. It's more that I'm just like, man, why are we doing that? Like, why do we feel we got to go waste money on a cup just because we want to look cool? Or why do we feel we got to go do this thing, buy this thing, consume that thing for the benefit of others, right? And so the whole keeping up with the Joneses idea, I just don't go to the mall. And one of the stores that I like is JCPenney because they have big and tall. And so I won't walk through the main hall. I will drive around the whole mall, go to the entrance that's just JCPenney, walk in directly to the department that I like, buy my stuff, and leave. And I won't see all the other stores that are in the mall. I won't walk through the main because I don't feel comfortable in that environment. And so is that a trigger that's positive or negative? Well, I'll tell you, it's saving me money in the bank, situation, and it's saving me from looking at somebody wrong because and that's a bad part, right? So triggers can be maybe protective. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I feel like triggers can sometimes be the cause of good, maybe. Like I don't want my kids to see me buying those thermoses and whatnot, and then them saying, oh, when there's a cool thing, it's fine to go and try to be part of that trend or whatever it is. That I definitely don't want. So if I'm triggered in a way where I get uncomfortable because the whole idea of consumerism is maybe being pushed down my throat, hopefully I do it in a way that shows my kids that it's okay to not participate in these things. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know what, Gordon? I just want to say, you blew my endorsement deal, so thank you. I was like, Stanley, no. Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't say the name. Now I remember the name. That's right.
But valid point, Mr. Davis. What do you stand on triggers?
I grew up. I had people that I liked, and I wanted to be like, and I had people that I didn't like. And I learned that there was some energies around some people that I just didn't care for. Didn't really say I didn't like them, but I recognized how I felt around them. I recognize how I feel around certain people. I recognize how I feel around certain places. And I've mentioned this before, and Gordon, I know that drive around JCPenney's for that side of the mall. So I know exactly what you talk about for that big and tall section. So,
yes, sir.
With that being said, I brought up before heading out to a football game here, driving out to the game. My wife and I are going out. This is a local high school game, ready to go. This is us versus our local rivals, El Camino High School versus Oceanside. And I'm driving, and as we're getting there, all of a sudden I see the lights, and all of a sudden I start thinking about the people I'm going to be engaging with, and all of a sudden the conversations start coming, and all of a sudden I start getting heavy. My heart starts feeling a little bit, and I said, you know what? I'm not going. Turned right around and went and left. It's one of those things, triggers for me. If I catch it, I got it like I was gonna go back and do a reference from Animal House back in the day when the guy found the drunk girl and the devil was on one shoulder and the angel was on the other, and you have those decisions to make. I come to those things, and I can't tell you how many different junctures in the day where I say, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not. I'm just, that's just trying to make someone else happy right now, and I need to get this done right now. I've got this as my priority, and I start making it. So I start getting those feels, and I start getting those thoughts. They come for me. They hit a lot lower for me, as far as it doesn't necessarily have to be directly with the person. It's about how I'm going to go out and approach my day. It's about how I'm going to go and what levels of boundaries I'm going to put so that I don't know. Like I'm going to say this in a nice way. I have some nosy neighbors, and I don't want my neighbors knowing all of my business. Just like I'm sure, well, some don't, but a lot of them do. Where you going? Hey, what you do? Hey, I saw your car over there. Where are you going over there? You were gone this weekend. What? Wow, it's good seeing you. You're back. Where'd you go? That kind of stuff. That can drive you crazy. And it's small and it's little tiny things, but I'm not gonna say I compartmentalize those things, but I get those things and I recognize them sometimes before they happen, because I'm just aware of my surroundings, and I try to make that a big point of what I do. And when I say aware of my surroundings, that also means being aware of who I'm with, because those energies of who I'm with can really bring it out for me too. And I recognize when I'm with one guy, I tend to laugh a little bit more, but I'm with another person, I'm a little more serious, because I don't know what he's saying. I think he's trying to make me look stupid. Is he trying to make me? Every time I've been around him, he makes me feel a certain way. So I'm going to watch, those are the kind of things that run in my mind and triggers for me. So I don't know if I answered your question there or not.
I think, yeah. Well, first of all, you guys, I was just not prepared for all this enlightenment at one time. So this is like really great stuff. Just thank you already. But I find it, and I am a survivor of the J.C. Penney situation. Okay, so and it's you know what? To this day, this is a trauma that I have, and my trigger, if ever I'm trying on clothes and they don't fit my thighs or what have you, I'm disgusted with the whole process. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. Wow. And, I've had, even with relationships, I'm going like everything's fine and dandy. She's like, oh, you like this, like that? Yeah, great. I say, here's the deal. You can go shopping for me. Okay. We do my measurements or what have you. Might do a trial run. We're out there. I give you the money to do that. I'm open to the styles. I'm open to whatever colognes, all that. Okay. But when I step into a store and having to buy, like, especially pants or what have you, and I freeze. I'm disgusted with the whole process. I instantly become that 10 or 11-year-old kid trying to squeeze into some pants for Sunday morning church. Like that. And I just, that's my trigger there. And to transfer this to, of course, relationship aspects, I found I had an ex get in touch with me. And I'm thinking, all right, she had some mental health issues. And, I'm listening to the phone and I'm like, okay. I'm like, yes, how can I help you? That kind of deal. And then it blew my mind where all this time has passed and where I have gone on. And she's bringing up stuff that was like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I'm thinking, you're still stuck, and it will be so for the first few months or whatever after our breakup, it would be easy for me to fall into that rage loop. Like, why did she do this? Why did that whole thing? I'm like, oh, we could have been no, all the plus and minuses of whatever failed relationship. But the thing that I found so interesting as time grew and got a chance to talk and get my feelings out and so on and so forth, I found that what I was really looking for were witnesses to the demise of a human being, because it's just like that person had these mental health challenges. Like nobody, I mean, you guys got to believe me. This was happening. What happened? What have you? And nobody believed me. They like, you guys were perfect, great. Did you cheat? No. Did you do this? No. Like they didn't see it till later, because you can see the physical changes, like for his face, because social, the social media, everything just got so out there. They're like, what happened? So they caught up late. But my stress was my trauma was somebody that you knew was just amazing in the perfect way. You weren't going to go any further. That was it. Found your partner. To somebody that was totally unrecognizable. Okay. I never dealt with that before. Okay. I never dealt with, what do they call it, for neurological breakdowns or what have you. They had a better word for it, but I never dealt with that in a loved one, seeing that happen like that. Okay. So when the person called, I had that moment of disbelief, and then I was starting to get the little anger, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not there anymore. I was shocked back into it, seeing that this person was still stuck. Okay. And there was no hatred on my part. It was pity. It was compassion, because I want nothing but the best for this human being. But it was a sign for me. It was a sign to me that sometimes a trigger is a boundary being violated. Okay. So when I felt that intrusion, or I felt that going back or regressing to that, my boundaries, like my emotional boundaries that have been put up in dealing with this person, said, no, we're good. We're going to move this on. Am I perfect from it? No, but I know I'm a heck of a lot better. Going back to Benji's point, you never necessarily all the way have to heal. It doesn't necessarily mean, whatever happens to your body, if you get a scratch, if you get a cut, you're going to have a scar. But guess what? That scar is the strongest part of that body now. Okay. That's the strong part. Okay. When they say the first cut is the deepest, when a person has been hurt so much or been in a certain way, emotionally, what have you, they hopefully, if they do it right, they're better for it. Okay. You get a little wiser. Okay. And I think that
Uh-oh. You're still there? Okay. All right.
Here.
Well, we got a break in the internet.
Here we go.
We got a break right there in the internet right there. So I just want to bring on this, because what you were going with what you were saying, Jay, I'm going to kind of pivot this question to, and I'm going to bring it up with you, Benji, up front. What role does self-forgiveness play in the healing process?
I mean, that's pretty much, for me, it's pivotal, right? It's all about just me forgiving myself for being angry, because my mother specifically, my mother was the first cut. My mother was the first bully, right? She was the bully of me, but I asked her, heaven, to do that to me, right? Because that's the only way I would listen, right? So I can't be angry about it now, because it made me the way I am. So now, is the pain and scar there? Of course, like you mentioned, it's the first bully, the first cut, right? But it was so deep, but it also gave me that strength to pull through. So during the hardest time, which it is for being a 62-year-old man, it's a tough time to go through a lot of different things. But it allowed me to endure, persistent, all that. Yeah. But self forgiveness was, for me, was like forgiving me myself for hating her so much, right? For not being a good teacher for her. And you guys, I'm a caretaker and I have never been that way. I've never been wired that way. So for me, like even for like you mentioned, like last week about caretaking, like, you know what I do? I make money to have other people take care of things. That's what happened to me, right? My mother, my stepfather, my animals, they're all the same way. So that's why I'm saying, is like, it's different for me. My classroom is different. My lane is different. Because of that, it allowed me to be this person that I can make a difference in a different way. Add value in a different way for different people.
Okay. That was actually good, because I was going to come around to, I know you're just not cutting people off, Benji. I know you're not that dude, because it seemed like you were doing that, but I got you at the end there, because
Yeah.
that's your school is what you are going through, and you specialize in that certain type of, I'm not going to say hurt,
Mhm.
but because of that, that's what you
Mhm.
went through. You went through the trauma. I went through the physical trauma in my neck over that
Mhm.
situation, and your approach is your way.
Mhm.
I want to
Yeah.
bring this up to Jerome. I'm not to Jerome, but to Gordon. So the same question goes to you. What role does self-forgiveness play in the healing process?
Hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about that as Benji was talking, and I really should have read these questions really well before we got on here. No, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about self love. Like I was thinking about how I am. You know, we always say we're our own biggest critic, right? And so being a critic of oneself is hard, because if you don't love yourself, and Benji touched on it, if you don't love yourself, then that's an issue on its own, right? But if you want to love yourself and you're working on that, then you have to forgive yourself, right? You know, maybe you did something or whatever that caused you to criticize yourself, and you maybe think that part of the issue, you're causing part of the issue. It's not just your reaction to something that's happening, right? You maybe there's a little bit of guilt, there's a little bit of, you know, there's a lot of things happening there. And so um if you can't forgive yourself, when can you get over something, right? You, no matter what happened, if you can't forgive yourself, that trauma is always going to be there. You know, we were talking about earlier how, can you heal, right? Is there, say, a completion of the healing process? There definitely isn't one if you can't forgive yourself. And I, you know, one of the things that I've found that I've done, and you know, in the past, just in life in general, is that I'm willing to be more accepting and tolerant and patient and compassionate with others. But then when I feel like I did something, oh man, I am beating myself up, and the talk, you know, in my own head. And so if I can do that for others, I should be able to do that for myself first and foremost, before I even do that for others, right? Or at the same time, right? Like I should have the same amount of tolerance, compassion, and acceptance and all of that for myself that I have for others. And so, or not, and so, and if I can't, or until I can't even start the healing process if I'm still beating myself up about something that maybe I did or said or whatever the case. So I don't know if all that makes sense, but that's kind of what I was thinking.
Absolutely does.
How about you, Jay? How do you how do you respond to that same question? What role does self-forgiveness play in the healing process?
I think it's pivotal, and you know, to piggyback off of Gordon, um, he, I think those three sentences he said, it really condenses down to me for is grace. Okay, you can give grace to all these other people. All these things happen. People forgive, but oftentimes, especially people that really have a lot of love in their heart, they're the hardest on themselves. Okay, they're the hardest on themselves, because you know that your intentions are of the best. You try to put your best foot forward. If whatever it doesn't happen quite as perfectly, or you misunderstood, or you inadvertently hurt somebody, you're hardest on yourself. Okay, and that's a sign of a good heart. I've seen that on the opposite side of that spectrum. I see a person that, oh, you know, I forgave myself for stealing that man's $10,000. I'm okay. I'm like, that's the end of the statement. Did you pay him back? Did you make amends? Did you try? No. I forgave myself. It's like that. doesn't work like that. I think that's narcissism, or I know every answer is narcissism, but I have to look into that more. But that I've seen that in people, where they do so much injustice to another person or organization or with their job or what have you. They maybe were not pulling their full weight on a group project, or they maybe left somebody high and dry when it came to building part of a project or whatever. Especially if entrepreneurs, you're going to see that all the time in so many ways where somebody's just not pulling their weight. So I find that amazing that those people they're so quick to minimize the damage that they impact, but they are not willing to entertain what happened or what those ramifications of those actions are. That's a severe disconnect. So when it comes down to it, the process to forgive yourself, I believe that a truly aware human being, they put themselves in an empathetic situation. She said, how did I make you feel? You heard my feelings when you were talking about maybe this religious group or this community organization or what have you, because, I'm a practicing this or what have you. And, I respect you as this, but, you just look at it and you know what? I was out of line. I'm sorry. I meant no disrespect. Okay. Correct the action first. Then work on forgiving yourself. Okay. If you care about somebody, you care about a situation, you're trying to stop the damage as soon as possible. I'm sorry. Okay. Heartfelt. Trust me. That's the beginning of just about so many good comebacks when it comes to business, when it comes to relationships, is to acknowledge what you did wrong and try to make amends to that. Okay. Make amends to that. And then, okay, why did I say that? Why did I react that way? And then you look at it and you work on fixing that. Okay. Maybe I'm a little wiser. I remember working in we have the LGBTQIA plus community. I said something inadvertent, we were talking about pronouns. I was like, oh, my pronouns is awesome and even more awesome. And one of my problems is not self-esteem. I love Jay a lot. But I happen to be working with okay, Samuel's laughing so hard because he knows that's true. So all right, so the deal is that there was a gay rights activist, and he passed away a few years ago, and amazing man. He pulled me aside. He said, Jay, he knew me. He said, I get what you're saying, but think about the people that are open in that community that simply want to be acknowledged and have respect. Your humor, although I know your heart was right, they might have been hurt by that statement, not feeling that you took them seriously. And I said, wow, I'm sorry, and I made sure when the group got back together, first thing I did was apologize. I'm a little jokey guy, especially when I'm trying to break the tension or what have.
Yep. Well, we got the break again.
Right?
And St. Louis internet is just not acted up today.
Right? I get it. What he's describing is unfortunate, right? Because you stay there.
Go. We had a break.
The journal.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
You're good.
Go ahead, Benj.
No, I mean it's unfortunate. Mr. Harris is right, but unfortunately for business wise, they made that excuses all the time, right? Especially the Chase of the world and the World Fargo of the world. It's like they make a mistake. I'm sorry, but we're gonna do it again. And here we are, 2026. Part of my responsibility to be in that circle and give him like a conscience. Say, man, stop doing this. You're hurting people. And if you want more billion, I can give you more billion in the right way. But that's on me. That's my classroom. Okay. Now, more directly to Mr. Harris about this, about the pronoun thing. One of my friends, my very good friend, husband, Joe, he loved Naked and Afraid show, that stupid show, right? I said, Joe, in Asia, that's not a show, that's reality. He asked me, what do you mean? People live like that in Asia. Like where I came from in the jungle. It's like that's how we are. And here we are in the United States making a commercialized, monetized product out of suffering. And he's like, oh my God. Yeah. So
Wow.
think about that. Okay?
Wow. But with that being said, I want to run this one last question through everybody here. Why? And I'm going to kind of put this as a statement as well too. But the question is, why do some people stay stuck in the identity of being wounded? One thing that and the reason why this question and some of the questions that I sent you guys earlier, they change throughout the day when I start thinking about things, so they might come off different here. So just to give you a general idea where my mind is running. But why do some people stay stuck in the identity of being wounded? And I brought that up because there are some people who are perpetual, and I wrote it down, victims, and they love it. And they absolutely love being victims. And I bring that up because I brought it up earlier when we were saying I had to realize I had to triage people almost when I run into them, because you can open up and just say, "Hey, how you doing?" And that opens up a world of questions to somebody. Guy on the street, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh man, I just lost my house. My wife left me." Blah blah blah. And you're like, "Oh, I'm caught up in this." There are some people who recognize that there are triggers that people can do and give another individual that gets you caught up in a loop of, and I'm not going to say this word, but I'm going to say this very loosely, get you caught in a level of servitude towards them because they got you. I got you. And now you can't walk away because I asked you, what does Black Lives Matter mean? And you just walked away from me. So you don't really understand what it means or whatever. So that's my question to you all. Why do some people stay stuck in the identity of being wounded?
Was in the question, and I think about the word identity, right? And I also think about like self-confidence, self-esteem. But I mean, I think it's all encapsulated in identity, right? And so if our identity, the way we view ourselves, is dependent on what other people think about us or how other people feel about us, then that there's a direct connection to how they treat us. And if I constantly want to be, or not so much to be, if I constantly want to feel maybe important, and to feel important, that means that others have to be, say, treating me a certain way, talking to me a certain way, then how can I get that? How do I get, it's kind of like, the whole addiction to likes and things on social media, right? It's that what is it, the dopamine. It's like if I want to feel important, then how can I get people to treat me like I'm important? And if my self-esteem and self-confidence is dependent on how others treat me, then I might be sharing all of my challenges so that people will constantly, "I'm so sorry. Is there something that I can do? Oh man, that's horrible," whatever that treatment. And I feel like for those that are maybe more confident in themselves and just and they know exactly who they are, and it's not dependent on what anybody else thinks or says or does, then it doesn't matter. You don't need to feel, you don't need to be sharing this stuff to be able to get that treatment from others, because it doesn't matter how others treat you. You know who you are, you're confident in who you are. And so that's kind of what I was thinking as you asked the question.
Okay. Benji, what do you think?
Simply for me though, you have a choice in this life, right? You got a choice of being a soulful life or an ego life. And those people stay in the victim, they live in the ego life. So Simple as that. It's their choice.
Hmm.
I tend to stay away from it. I just don't particularly.
Just cut them off at the knees. Is that what you just cut them off at the knees, Benji?
No, I really have to respect their time, but they can't pull me in the pit with them,
There
and
you
they
go.
do, then it's become an
Mhm.
issue. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Jay?
I think it's faulty programming. You know, I had this is video game I like to play called Arc Raiders, right? So you go online and you can you can go and get these little treasures and so on and so forth and build all these cool things. I you spend so many hours or have you building these cool things, but it can be taken away from you in minutes once you get into a certain level. So I had a dear friend that told me, stop being such a whiny baby, and I'm like, man up, get in there. I get in there and get my stuff stolen, right? So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I was like, okay, carpe diem, whatever, Samuel. I'm sorry, I was triggered. But it's too soon. Healing is a process. Healing is a process. Okay.
It's important you recognize the trigger.
There you go. There you go.
But I humbly say that sometimes I think a lot of times that we find ourselves, we get caught up in our own mire of whatever situations we get into. And I'm very fortunate, blessed, I would say, to have very positive people around me because I am a source where a lot of people share with me their problems, issues. Some things I can help with, some things I can't. So it's a lot to carry with you. Okay. So, and it can affect me. So I have people that, they help you, they make sure if your crown's a little crooked, they help you straighten it out. Those are those positive friends. They're like, hey, that doesn't sound like you, man. What's the deal? I said, you know what? I guess I got a really hard day in the community today. I guess dealt with his mother, dealing with these orphans and and they're just like, just gotta decompress, man, what have you. And when I see people that are in that situation, I tell them, I'm like, I hear what you're saying. Your pain is valid. And it's not to diminish you or any way. But I tell you what, you still have the gift of being able to draw air into your lungs. Okay. You got a chance that other people just simply don't anymore. All right. So, what can we do to get you to that next level? If we can't right now, what's the long-term plan? Because really, you set the standard of what you will or will not what you will or will not allow in your life. And that's not just the people that come into it, but it's about the situations on how you let them take you down or build you up. So I tell people in a heartbeat, if I'm going to fall, I'm falling forward. I'm going to learn on the process on the way there. Okay. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And with that being said, I'm going to kind of give up in this conversation with this statement here that I kind of wrote out as I was going through this healing process, because healing is just it's a very big thing, and it affects different people in different ways. When you mention it, it can trigger people. So in closing, I just want to write this right here. Something to think about. Healing doesn't mean the past never happened. Healing means the past no longer gets to decide who you are today. And maybe the real sign that you're healed is this: when you can remember the wound without becoming the wound again. That's something to reflect on this week. And I didn't bring it up again, but if you're interested in joining a live audience, we have our QR codes that we flash, and we are here on Fridays. We just kind of freestyle it. And if you show up, we will be here to discuss other different things. You can be reached at www.upliftourcommunity.com. The website is still being complete, as well as the app being in beta. So until next time, keep uplifting yourselves, keep uplifting each other, and keep uplifting our community. See y'all next one.